Hi, everybody. It's Bruce Collins from Cambium Networks. Thanks for joining the webinar today. Today I'm going to be talking about our IIoT solutions and specifically CNReach, which is our narrowband SCADA solution for industrial applications. This webinar is being recorded and we're going to post it up on the forum. So for any of your colleagues that couldn't join the call today, it will be available later on. And the other thing I'd point out is that if you have any questions as we go along, please just go ahead and put them into the chat window on the webinar interface, and we'll take those questions as they come in. I expect it to be a fairly brief webinar today. We'll talk probably 20 minutes or so, and then take any questions that you might have, and then get you on the way with the rest of your day. So appreciate, again, joining. So just a little background on IIoT and Cambium Networks. Cambium offers a whole set of products that are suitable for industrial applications. And when we talk about IIoT applications, we're really focused on SCADA process control and monitoring, video surveillance and security with some of our broadband products. We'll talk about lease line replacement. So anytime that you're currently serving an application with satellite or a fixed connection like a 2 or 4 wire analog service from the phone company, you can oftentimes replace that with a private wireless network and reduce your annual or monthly cost that you're paying to the phone company. And then remote office access is important as well. When you talk about Wi-Fi access or getting access back to the intranet for the field craft that are out servicing part of the critical infrastructure, being able to connect back in to the home office, get information and share information with the colleagues back at the home offices makes a lot of sense. So what ties all this together from a fixed wireless perspective is that we're looking at wide geographic areas, multiple points of presence, so lots of different points that we want to connect, and then the importance of moving data confidently and confidentially, so reliably and securely across that network. So to that end, we really focus on the verticals that you see in the lower right there: electric utilities, oil and gas, rail, water, and to an extent, intelligent transportation, whether that can be some mining applications or some traffic control applications. Oftentimes there's transportation requirements that go along with that. We have a whole suite of products that really are suitable for that. You'll see everything from licensed microwave with multiple gigabits per second to broadband solutions for access and video surveillance, as I mentioned. Then as you continue to the right, you'll see Wi-Fi access points. And so this is an important new capability with our CN Pilot products, with the E500 and the E700 being able to deliver Wi-Fi access out into very remote areas using a ruggedized Wi-Fi access point. And then what I'll spend most of my time on today is talking about applications and features of our CNReach product, which is focused on SCADA process control and monitoring. So we call it narrowband. That's really to contrast it with the broadband solutions that are delivering megabits and gigabits. Our narrowband SCADA solution is delivering machine-to-machine communications in effectively kilobits per second, but it's really focused more on what can I do to control a device or monitor a device in a very reliable fashion. So when we talk about IIoT, as Cambium, we're really focused on the transport piece of this overall model. So you have, imagine, sensors that are collecting information from various physical parameters like temperature and pressure and water levels, vibration. And then that data gets digitized and then transported across a wide area network. And that's really where Cambium focuses. Once it arrives back at the headquarters or the central location or the cloud, then you normalize it and publish it so that decisions can be made and trends can be analyzed. But again, Cambium is focused on the transport layer, and that primarily is that list of check marks there. But what you'll notice is that list will continue to grow. And as the new technologies emerge in machine-to-machine communications, we certainly expect to be heavily involved in those different areas. So let me give you a brief look here. This is a look at what we consider a legacy wireless SCADA system. So Oftentimes, the applications for machine-to-machine or SCADA are to modernize or upgrade an existing infrastructure. So this is what a traditional or legacy system would look like. It's serial-only communications. It's very difficult to do firmware updates. No ability to do remote management. If you need to change anything, you need to head out in a truck, go out there and change out software, change out any kind of configuration parameters. And it's oftentimes very vendor-specific protocols, and oftentimes these are end-of-life products. So what does the opportunity here, and here's that same cabinet now migrated to a new modern SCADA system leveraging our CNReach product. With the modern system, you have standards-based IP communications. The entire network can be managed from a central location using our CNMaestro management system, which is based on a cloud or on-premises environment. There's fewer discrete devices. You can see in the upper right hand of this picture, the CNReach radio is the blue box there. That box at the top of that, you'll see a couple, it may be a little difficult to see, but there's some wires coming out of the top of that box up in the upper right corner. Those are connecting directly to sensors, and those are doing analog and digital I/O. So in this case, where traditionally there would be a separate remote terminal unit or programmable logic controller, using CNReach, that could be integrated into one consolidated unit. So much simpler, less equipment to manage, less equipment that could fail, and the whole thing becomes simpler, lower power capacity and everything else. It's all software defined, so you can upgrade the firmware, you can update the over-the-air protocol because these are all software defined radios. And ultimately, this is a more capital efficient approach by not having to pay an annual or monthly expense for the data transport. It's all a private wireless network. So at the end of the day, this customer, which is a water management district, was able to achieve fewer truck rolls, quicker and faster response times to any kind of situation that occurs in their critical infrastructure on the water side, reduced outage times so they have a more consistent view of the network. And then with the ability to manage it all centrally, certainly the effort that's required to manage the network itself, not only the infrastructure, but the network itself, becomes much lower cost. Here's a little bit more detail on that particular cabinet. What this customer was doing is your case study here. What this customer was doing was managing a water distribution system. And in this particular cabinet, on the lower left, you'll see a water tank. And what they're really looking to do here is monitor the water level, monitor whether the water overflowed in that tank, whether someone opened that hatch cover and tried to get inside that tank. And then if somebody was to get into the panel or actually push that red button because they needed some help because there was something going wrong on site. All of these things are analog or digital inputs, you can see from the indication there. And by connecting those directly into the CNReach radio, it's a much simpler application. And in the upper right, you'll see a Yagi antenna coming out of that cabinet. And that's pointing back to their central SCADA master control center, which is about 7 miles, 11 kilometers away down that hill in the center of the city. So imagine water tanks, lift stations, locations all around the city that are using this type of automation to manage the network. Here's another example. This is another water district out in the eastern half of the United States. What was important for this customer was the ability to migrate from what's called unlicensed 900 megahertz or the ISM band, and then migrate over to the licensed MAS band for 900 megahertz. Again, using Link Planner, which is the view down in the lower left, and then CNMaestro to manage the overall network. Here's an oil and gas application. This is a electronic disconnect, so the ability to turn off a wellhead remotely. In this application, this customer has deployed this in over 500 wellheads. It replaces the RTU, again, being able to use a digital output on the CNReach radio to automatically turn on and off an actuator and enable or disable a remote wellhead. So oil and gas is certainly a key vertical for this product. Here's another one. It's a natural gas pipeline. This is in Colorado, also here in the U.S. This is a 200-kilometer pipeline that's being monitored The interesting thing here is they're also using our broadband products to provide backhaul to various head ends or masters along this pipeline. And then at each master, or access point connects to about 30 to 60 endpoints. And again, monitoring pressures, temperatures, leakage, determining everything is working fine with the natural gas pipeline. In this case, we also, in all these cases, we work with our local channel partners. In this case, our local partner is doing the network design, procurement, and installation of the infrastructure. On the rail side, here's an example of positive train control. So putting in instrumentation on the rail line for a freight rail application to monitor what's happening as trains pass these Wayside messaging servers. So again, 200 locations and collecting information using CNReach back to a central location for monitoring what's happening with the freight rail system. There's another rail application which is around rail yard automation. So you can see a rail yard here. You can imagine it's pretty difficult to run new wires through a rail yard where you've got all these train tracks running in parallel across a pretty large area. This is a couple miles long and about a mile wide. And what they do in this case is use our back-to-back repeater capability in CNReach to deliver communications from one end of the rail yard to the other to do actuating and routing traffic and monitoring what's happening in that rail yard. So it's, again, automating that rail yard and using our point-to-point or relay capability in CNReach. So you can see that was a couple examples of case studies where we've deployed CNReach. The number of applications and the type of users is really almost unlimited. You can see a long list of the types of customers that could be using CNReach in various forms or fashions as they automate processes and look to do that very reliably and securely. CNReach itself, talk a bit about the product. The product in a single module can be deployed in either point-to-point configuration or point-to-multi-point configuration. So the ability to use the same module in different applications as a different set of toolkit, sort of a single tool to do lots of different things, is pretty compelling and interesting to operators because they don't have to hold a lot of different spares. In the middle, you can see that we can support both a back-to-back repeater capability, which is a dual radio, one radio pointing, in this case, westbound and one pointing eastbound, and the radio is able to communicate in both directions simultaneously, so you get that nice back-to-back repeater capability. We also support a traditional store and forward repeater where the radio listens in the westbound direction, and when it receives the packet, then it turns around and transmits it in the eastbound direction. So you use less channels in that case, but you do lose capacity as you go through that store and forward repeater. On the CNReach device itself, you'll notice in the front, there's a nice blown up picture of it. There are 2 serial ports and 2 Ethernet ports. And on the left side, there's that green connector. That green connector provides analog and digital input and output. So that's where you drive directly into sensors or read sensors, or drive actuators and read sensors. That also is where we connect our sync capability. So if you're going to synchronize multiple access points, that's a way to do that using sync. A little more about the platform. It's available in a variety of different bands. So when we talk about frequency bands, it depends a little bit where you are located in the world, which country that you are supporting. Here in the US, we support what's called the 900 megahertz band in MAS and ISM. And this is also useful in several of the countries in the CALA region and also in Southeast Asia. 900 megahertz, and being able to do both licensed and unlicensed in the same radio is pretty useful capability because customers can migrate from one to the other without having to change out their hardware. 700 megahertz is in the US only. 400 megahertz is a global band. We offer that both in an FCC model for the US and then also an ETSI Red model, which covers the entire 406 to 470 megahertz band, and that's suitable in many countries around the world. And then finally, 220 megahertz, which is available also in many countries around the world. Radios have built-in security, so 128 and 256-bit AES encryption. And as I mentioned before, it can be monitored or managed using cnMaestro and designed using the Link Planner software. There's a lot of detail in the deck here. As you'll get an opportunity to download a recording of this after the session, so you can see some of the specs. I won't spend a lot of time going through the different specifications, but I included some of them in here. You can also go on our CambiumNetworks.com website and download all of the detailed specification sheets. One of the new features we just added was a spectrum analyzer. This is a nice feature for whether you're using licensed or unlicensed spectrum. You can see a real-time instance or real-time application of what's happening in the network. So you can see if there's noise on certain channels, or if the channel that you believe you have the exclusive license to, perhaps it's someone else is sitting on that channel, and you can identify that situation as you troubleshoot a network. And then later this year, we'll be introducing what's called a high availability 1+1 station. This is a piece of hardware. You can see in the lower left a photo of it. This can be this is mounted in a rack and includes inside that unit there are 2 radios and 2 power supplies along with a supervisory circuitry to maintain high availability. So if one of the radios fails or one of the power supplies fails, the system will automatically swap over to the backup and maintain high availability. With CNReach, we also offer a number of antenna and turnkey installation kits, so you can purchase not only the radio, but you can get a complete kit knowing that it's all been tightly integrated, it's all easy to connect up and install, and then also, of course, it's all supported within Link Planner. So finally, just as a summary, CNReach, what makes it CNReach unique? I touched on a number of these items: single and dual radios, the ability to do that back-to-back repeater note capability, multiple bands are supported. We talked about access point synchronization, adaptive modulation, and then one of the things that's very unique is the ability to do built-in general purpose I/O. And then finally, the cnMaestro capability. We have some major enhancements coming on that in the next couple of months. You can certainly manage the radios using cnMaestro, whether you're using the cloud-based version of cnMaestro or using the on-premises version. So that's kind of a quick summary of CNReach. As promised, kept it brief this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are. If there's any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat window, and we'll take those questions. Otherwise, we'll call it to a close for today. I don't see any questions. So again, if you have any further questions, you can always post them on our community on the CambiumNetworks.com website, community.cambiumnetworks.com. That's a nice location to post questions or comments about the different products and applications. And then you'll be receiving a follow-up email with information on where to download a recording of this webinar if you're interested in referring back to it at a later time. So thanks again for everybody for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.